"You're getting me all wet," she whispered. The rancher heated her up in ways she never imagined. The sun was just beginning to rise over the rolling hills, casting a soft golden glow across the wide-open ranch. Birds sang their morning songs, and a gentle breeze rustled the tall grasses. Clara stood at the edge of the wooden porch, her hands wrapped around a steaming cup of tea. She had always loved mornings like this, when the world felt quiet and full of promise. But today, there was a knot in her stomach she couldn't ignore, a mix of anticipation and worry. She had been working on the ranch for nearly a month now, helping with chores and learning the daily routines. The rancher, a man named Daniel, was a quiet, steady presence. He didn't talk much, but when he did, his words carried weight. Clara had always admired that about him. There was something about the way he moved, the way he handled the animals and the land, that made her feel small and yet part of something larger than herself. The morning air smelled of hay and earth, and Clara could hear the distant lowing of cows. She took a deep breath, trying to calm herself. Today Daniel had asked her to help with a special task, something outside her usual chores. She wasn't sure what it was, but she sensed it was important. Her heart beat a little faster at the thought. She had never felt this kind of nervous excitement before, a mix of curiosity and admiration. As she walked toward the barn, the wooden boards creaking under her boots, Clara thought about how much her life had changed since she arrived at the ranch. She had come here to escape the busy city, to find a place where she could breathe and live at her own pace. She had wanted simplicity, a routine, and the quiet satisfaction of hard work. But what she hadn't expected was how much the people here would touch her life, especially Daniel. Daniel was already in the barn when she arrived, moving with careful precision as he tended to the horses. His broad shoulders were tense, but there was a calmness in his eyes that made her feel safe. He looked up as she entered, and for a moment, the world seemed to pause. Clara felt her cheeks warm as their eyes met. He nodded at her, a simple gesture, but one that carried more meaning than words could express. "Morning, Clara," he said in his usual calm voice. "Are you ready to start?" Clara nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat. "Yes, I think so," she replied, trying to sound confident. They moved together through the barn, gathering supplies and preparing the animals for the morning tasks. Clara tried to focus on the work, on the rhythm of brushing the horses and feeding the animals, but her mind kept wandering to Daniel. She noticed the way his hands moved over the animals, gentle but firm, and she felt a strange admiration that made her heart flutter. She had never met someone who seemed so at ease with the world, someone who could handle both strength and care with such balance. As they worked, Daniel talked about the tasks ahead. He explained how each chore fit into the bigger picture of the ranch, how every detail mattered, and how the animals depended on their care. Clara listened intently, absorbing every word. She loved the way he spoke, not just the information he shared, but the calm authority in his voice. There was a quiet confidence that was comforting, yet also a little intimidating. At one point, Clara stumbled as she tried to lift a heavy bale of hay. Daniel was right there beside her, steadying the load. "Careful," he said gently, his hand brushing hers for just a moment. Clara's heart skipped a beat. It was such a small gesture, but it made her feel seen, noticed in a way she hadn't expected. They worked together for hours, moving from the barn to the fields, checking fences and ensuring the animals were comfortable. The sun climbed higher in the sky, warming the earth and their skin. Clara felt a sense of accomplishment, a quiet pride in the work they were doing. But she also felt something more, a connection to Daniel, subtle and growing, that she couldn't quite explain. By midday, they paused for a short break. Clara sat on the porch steps, wiping the sweat from her brow while Daniel leaned against the railing, drinking water. They didn't talk much, but the silence was comfortable, filled with the sounds of the ranch and the occasional breeze. Clara felt a strange mixture of contentment and longing, the kind of feeling that comes from being near someone who makes the world feel both bigger and smaller at the same time. "Clara," Daniel said after a few moments, breaking the silence, "I wanted to show you something." She looked up at him, curiosity sparkling in her eyes. "What is it?" she asked. He smiled faintly, a rare and fleeting expression that made her heart lift. "Follow me," he said, turning toward the back of the ranch. Clara followed, stepping carefully over rocks and uneven ground. They reached a small clearing surrounded by trees, with a wooden fence enclosing a pen. Inside, a few young foals were playing, their small bodies clumsy but full of energy. Clara's eyes widened in delight. She loved animals, and seeing the foals brought an unexpected joy to her heart. "These are our newest additions," Daniel said, watching her reaction closely. "I thought you might like to meet them." Clara knelt by the fence, reaching out to gently touch one of the foals. The animal nuzzled her hand and she laughed softly. Daniel's eyes followed her, a faint smile tugging at his lips. For a moment, the world seemed perfect, the kind of peaceful happiness she had been searching for since arriving at the ranch. As they spent time with the foals, Clara noticed how attentive Daniel was, how he observed every detail, ensuring the animals were safe and comfortable. She admired his dedication and patience, qualities that seemed rare and precious. She realized that there was more to him than she had first understood. Beneath his quiet demeanor was a man who cared deeply, not just about the ranch, but about the life he had built here. By the time they returned to the main ranch house, Clara felt a mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. Her muscles ached from the morning's work, but her spirit felt light and full of possibility. She had discovered not only the rhythm of ranch life, but also a connection to someone who made her heart beat a little faster, someone who made ordinary moments feel extraordinary. As the afternoon sun began to dip toward the horizon, Clara paused on the porch, looking out over the fields. The sky was painted in shades of pink and gold, and the world seemed to hold its breath in that quiet, beautiful moment. Daniel stood beside her, their shoulders almost touching. Neither spoke, but the silence was filled with understanding, a shared acknowledgement of the day they had spent together. Clara felt a warmth spread through her chest, a feeling of hope and excitement for what the coming days might bring. She didn't know exactly what the future held, but for the first time in a long while, she felt as though she belonged, as though she had found a place and a person that made her life richer and fuller. And in that quiet moment, with the last rays of sunlight brushing the fields, Clara realized that her life on the ranch was about more than work or routine. It was about discovery, connection, and the unexpected ways that people and experiences could change the way you saw the world. She felt ready to face whatever came next, confident that she could handle it, and quietly excited for the moments of surprise and joy that she knew were waiting just around the corner. The next morning, Clara woke to the sound of roosters crowing in the distance. The sun had barely started to rise, and a soft mist clung to the grass and the trees. She stretched and took a deep breath of the cool, fresh air. Life on the ranch was hard work, but there was something about it that made her feel alive. Every day brought new challenges, new responsibilities, and new lessons. Today, she knew, would be no different. Clara quickly got dressed and stepped outside. The dew on the grass glistened in the soft sunlight, and the air smelled of earth and fresh hay. Daniel was already in the barn, tending to the horses. His presence was steady and reassuring, like the solid foundation of the ranch itself. Seeing him there, calm and focused, gave her a strange sense of comfort. "Morning, Clara." Daniel greeted her, his voice calm but friendly. "Ready for today?" Clara smiled and nodded. "I think so. What's on the plan?" she asked. He handed her a small list of tasks he had prepared the night before. "There are a few chores, and then I want to show you how to manage the irrigation system."
It's important for the crops and the animals. I think you're ready for it, he said.
Clara's heart skipped a beat at his words. She had been learning quickly, but she didn't expect him to trust her with something as important as the irrigation system. The responsibility made her nervous, but it also gave her a sense of pride. She was starting to feel like she truly belonged on the ranch, like she was becoming a part of something meaningful. They moved through the barn together, feeding the horses and checking the animals. Clara was careful and precise, following Daniel's instructions closely. He watched her work, offering guidance when necessary, but allowing her to take the lead. There was a quiet respect in the way he treated her, a trust that she had not expected but deeply appreciated. After finishing the morning chores, they walked toward the fields. Daniel explained how the irrigation system worked, pointing to the pipes and valves, showing her how water flowed through the channels to reach each section of the farm. Clara listened carefully, taking in every detail. She appreciated how patient he was, never rushing her and always ready to answer her questions. "This is more complicated than I thought," Clara admitted as she tried to adjust one of the valves. Daniel chuckled softly. "It's not too difficult once you understand the flow," he said. "You're learning quickly, Clara." "I'm impressed." His words made her heart warm. She had never received such sincere praise before, and it encouraged her to keep trying, to push herself to learn and grow. She adjusted the valve again, carefully this time, and watched as the water began to flow correctly through the channels. A small smile spread across her face. She had done it. "See? I knew you could do it," Daniel said, nodding in approval. Clara felt a surge of confidence. She was beginning to realize that this life, this place, and even the people in it could teach her more than she had ever imagined. She had come to the ranch hoping for simplicity, but she was finding something much more rewarding. A sense of purpose, a feeling that her work mattered, and a connection to the people around her. As they worked together in the fields, Daniel shared stories about the ranch, about how he had inherited it from his father and the challenges he had faced over the years. Clara listened intently, fascinated by his experiences. She admired his dedication and his resilience, the way he had built a life grounded in hard work and responsibility. "You've really adapted well, Clara," Daniel said as they walked back toward the barn. "Most people can't handle the pace here, but you've managed it beautifully." Clara felt a blush rise to her cheeks. She wasn't used to such genuine compliments, and they made her feel proud and appreciated. "Thank you," she said softly. "I'm trying my best." By late afternoon, the sun was high and warm, and the work had become harder under its heat. Clara wiped the sweat from her brow and took a moment to rest, sitting on a large rock near the edge of the field. Daniel joined her, handing her a bottle of water. They sat together in silence, watching the clouds drift across the sky. For a moment, Clara let herself simply enjoy the quiet, the peace of the moment, and the sense of connection she felt with Daniel. It was a feeling she had never experienced before, safe, calm, and yet thrilling in a subtle way. She realized that her admiration for him went beyond respect for his work. There was a warmth in his presence, a gentle confidence that made her feel both comfortable and inspired. After their short break, they returned to work, checking fences and making minor repairs. Clara learned quickly under Daniel's guidance, handling tools and performing tasks she never thought she could manage. She was proud of herself, proud that she could contribute and be useful in a meaningful way. Daniel's quiet encouragement had given her a boost of confidence she didn't even know she needed. As evening approached, Clara and Daniel moved back to the barn to finish the day's work. The animals were tired but well cared for, and the fields were in order. Clara felt a sense of satisfaction, the kind that comes only after a day of hard, meaningful work. She looked at Daniel, who was finishing up his own tasks, and felt a deep appreciation for his patience, guidance, and the quiet way he had welcomed her into his world. "Thank you for today," Clara said as they stepped out of the barn. "I learned a lot." Daniel smiled.
You're welcome. You're doing very well, Clara.
"Keep this up, and you'll be running this place in no time," he joked lightly. Clara laughed, feeling a lightness in her chest. Humor and kindness made Daniel approachable, even though he could seem serious at first. She realized that there was more to him than she had initially seen. A depth of character, a gentle heart, and a steadfast dedication to the life he had chosen. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Clara paused to take it all in. The ranch looked different in the evening light, softer and calmer, almost magical. She felt a sense of belonging she had not known before. Life on the ranch was challenging, yes, but it was rewarding in ways that no city life ever could be. Daniel stood beside her, watching the sky, and for a moment they didn't speak. The quiet was comfortable, a shared understanding between them. Clara felt a flutter of emotion, a mix of admiration, gratitude, and something she couldn't quite put into words. She realized that this connection, this feeling, was becoming an important part of her life. Finally, Daniel broke the silence. "Tomorrow, I want to show you how we prepare for the evening chores. There's a lot to manage, but I think you're ready," he said. Clara nodded, feeling a mixture of excitement and determination. "I'm ready," she replied. As she walked back to her small cabin on the ranch, Clara reflected on the day. She had learned not only about the ranch and its work, but also about herself, her abilities, her resilience, and her capacity to connect with someone who inspired her. The day had been full of challenges, learning, and moments of quiet beauty, and she knew that the coming days would bring even more experiences that would shape her life in unexpected ways. That night, Clara lay in bed, listening to the distant sounds of the ranch, cows settling in for the night, the wind rustling through the trees, and the occasional soft hoot of an owl. She felt a calm satisfaction, a sense that she was exactly where she was supposed to be. She thought of Daniel and the lessons he had taught her that day, and she smiled to herself. Life on the ranch was demanding, yes, but it was also full of discovery, growth, and the quiet moments that made everything worthwhile. And as sleep began to take her, Clara felt a quiet excitement for tomorrow, for the tasks she would face, the lessons she would learn, and the experiences that would continue to shape her new life on the ranch. She was ready for it all, and she knew that with patience, determination, and guidance, she could handle whatever came her way. The following morning, Clara woke earlier than usual. The sky was still a soft shade of gray, the first hints of sunlight peeking over the hills. She could hear the distant sounds of animals stirring, the low hum of the ranch coming to life. Today felt different. There was a tension in the air, a sense that something important was about to happen. She couldn't quite explain it, but her heart was racing with a mixture of anticipation and nervous energy. Clara dressed quickly, brushing her hair and stepping outside. The air was crisp and cool, carrying the scent of earth and morning dew. Daniel was already in the barn, as usual, moving with his steady, deliberate rhythm. He glanced up as she approached, and for a brief moment their eyes met. There was a look in his eyes that Clara couldn't quite read, something serious, but not unkind. She nodded to him, trying to mask her curiosity and the flutter in her chest. "Good morning, Clara." Daniel said. "Today, I have something a little different planned. It will test your skills and your patience." Clara felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. She had been learning quickly, but the idea of a challenge made her stomach twist. "What kind of test?" she asked, trying to sound confident. "You'll see soon enough," he replied with a faint smile. "Come on, let's get started." They began the day with their usual chores, feeding the animals and checking the fences, but Clara noticed that Daniel's instructions were more detailed, more precise, and he watched her closely. She realized that today he was paying attention to every small action, every decision she made. The usual calm rhythm of the morning felt different. It was a test, and Clara knew it. After the morning chores, Daniel led her to the far side of the ranch, where the terrain was rougher and the fields less tended. He pointed to a section of fencing that had been damaged by a recent storm. The wooden posts were splintered, and the wire was loose in several places. "This needs to be fixed before the animals wander into the wrong area," he explained. "It will take patience and focus. I want you to lead this project with my guidance." Clara's heart sank slightly. She had repaired small fences before, but this was much bigger and more complicated. The responsibility felt heavy on her shoulders. She took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. "Okay," she said. "I'll do my best." For hours, Clara worked with Daniel to repair the fence. She measured, hammered, and tied the wires with careful attention. Daniel offered tips and corrections, but he let her take the lead, trusting her to make the decisions. It was harder than she expected. The sun climbed higher, and her arms ached from lifting the heavy posts. Sweat dripped down her forehead, and she felt the strain in every muscle. At one point, a young foal wandered too close to the broken fence, its small hooves slipping in the soft dirt. Clara froze, fear gripping her for a moment. She rushed forward, guiding the foal safely away from the dangerous area. Daniel watched quietly, then nodded approvingly. "Good instincts," he said. "That's exactly how you handle unexpected problems." Clara felt a flicker of pride, even though she was exhausted. The day was pushing her to her limits, testing her endurance, skill, and focus. But she was learning more than just how to repair a fence. She was learning how to handle responsibility, how to stay calm under pressure, and how to trust herself. By midday, the fence was mostly repaired, but a section still remained unstable. Daniel suggested they take a short break before finishing the final part. They sat under the shade of a large oak tree, drinking water and catching their breath. Clara's arms and back ached, but there was a satisfaction in her exhaustion. She had faced a challenge, and she was handling it better than she had expected. Daniel watched her quietly, as if evaluating not just the work, but her determination and resilience. Clara felt a strange mixture of pride and nervousness under his gaze. She realized that he saw more than just her efforts. He saw her growth, her courage, and her willingness to face difficulties head-on. After the break, they returned to the fence. The last section was the most difficult. The ground was uneven, and the posts needed extra effort to secure. Clara struggled to lift one heavy post into place, her muscles trembling with fatigue. Daniel stepped forward to help, offering steady hands and careful guidance. Together, they worked silently, side by side, until the final post was secured and the wire tight. Clara stepped back, breathing heavily, and looked at the completed fence. It wasn't perfect. There were small flaws, but it was strong, functional, and safe. A sense of accomplishment washed over her. She had faced a challenge she never thought she could handle, and she had succeeded. "Excellent work, Clara," Daniel said, his voice calm but filled with approval. "You handled this very well." "I knew you could." Clara smiled, feeling a warmth in her chest. She realized that today had taught her more than just how to fix a fence. It had taught her about perseverance, focus, and the satisfaction that comes from facing a challenge and overcoming it. She felt stronger, more capable, and more connected to the ranch and the life she was building there. As they walked back toward the barn, the sun began to lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the fields. Clara felt a quiet peace, a sense of balance between effort and reward. The day had been demanding, but it had also been deeply satisfying. She could feel herself growing, not just as a worker, but as a person. Later in the afternoon, as they tended to the animals again, a small accident occurred. One of the older cows had wandered into a muddy area and was struggling to free itself. Clara noticed immediately and rushed to help, her heart pounding with worry. Daniel followed closely, and together they guided the cow back to safety. Clara's hands were muddy, her clothes soaked, but the sense of relief and accomplishment was immense. She realized that the life on the ranch was full of unexpected challenges, but each one taught her something new about patience, problem-solving, and compassion. That evening, Clara sat on the porch steps, watching the sky turn shades of orange and pink. Daniel joined her, carrying a small pitcher of water. They sat together in comfortable silence, listening to the sounds of the ranch settling for the night. Clara felt a deep sense of contentment and connection. She had faced difficulties, made mistakes, and learned from them, and she was stronger for it. Daniel spoke softly, breaking the silence. "You've done very well today, Clara, not just with the work, but with how you handled the unexpected. That's important. Life on a ranch is full of surprises, and you've proven that you can handle them." Clara smiled, feeling both pride and gratitude. "Thank you, Daniel. I'm learning so much from you," she said. He nodded, his expression serious but kind. "You're capable of more than you realize. Remember that." As night fell and the stars began to twinkle in the clear sky, Clara reflected on the day. She had faced one of the biggest challenges since arriving at the ranch, and she had come through stronger, wiser, and more confident. She realized that life here was teaching her lessons she had never expected, about resilience, responsibility, and the satisfaction of hard work. Clara knew that the coming days would bring more challenges, perhaps even greater than today, but she felt ready to face them. She had learned that she could trust herself, rely on her instincts, and work with others to overcome difficulties. And she knew that Daniel's guidance and support were helping her grow in ways she hadn't imagined. As she prepared for bed, Clara felt a quiet excitement for the future. Life on the ranch was demanding, yes, but it was also full of discovery, growth, and meaningful connections. She felt stronger, more confident, and more at home than she had ever felt before. And she knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, she was ready to meet them with determination, patience, and courage. The next morning, Clara woke to the sound of a strong wind rattling the windows of her small cabin. She sat up, feeling a twinge of worry. Storms were not unusual on the ranch, but something about the intensity of this one made her uneasy. The sky outside was a deep gray, clouds rolling and twisting as though in a hurry to reach the horizon. Rain began to fall in steady sheets, pattering against the tin roof with a relentless rhythm. Clara dressed quickly, pulling on her waterproof jacket and sturdy boots. She knew that a storm like this could make her tasks difficult, even dangerous, but she also knew she couldn't sit idle. Life on the ranch demanded action, even in challenging circumstances. Daniel had emphasized this many times. Responsibility and quick thinking were as much a part of ranch life as feeding the animals or fixing fences. As she stepped outside, the wind tugged at her jacket, and the rain soaked her within moments. The smell of wet earth filled the air, and the distant rolling hills were barely visible through the thick curtain of rain. Clara braced herself and made her way toward the barn. She could hear the lowing of the animals, and the anxious sounds of the horses echoed faintly through the storm. Daniel was already in the barn, moving quickly but carefully as he checked the animals. His expression was serious, his usual calm demeanor tinged with concern. "Clara!" he called over the sound of the wind. "We have to secure the animals and make sure the fences hold. The storm could cause damage quickly." Clara nodded, her heart pounding. She had faced challenges before, but this was different. The wind, the rain, the slippery ground, it all made every movement more difficult. She followed Daniel into the barn, where the animals were restless. Clara could see the tension in their eyes, their ears flicking nervously at the sound of thunder. She felt a surge of responsibility. It was up to her to help them stay safe. They started with the horses, checking the stalls and making sure the doors were secure. Clara moved carefully, her hands shaking slightly as she fastened latches and adjusted blankets. She could feel the strain of the morning already, but she pushed through, focusing on each task as it came. Daniel worked beside her, offering guidance and support, but letting her take initiative. After the horses were secure, they moved to the cows and sheep. The pens had been weakened by the recent repairs Clara had done, and the rain was testing their stability. Clara worked tirelessly, reinforcing posts, tightening wires, and checking gates. At one point, a strong gust of wind sent a wooden post wobbling dangerously. Clara lunged forward, holding it steady while Daniel quickly secured it. Her hands were wet and slippery, and her muscles screamed from the effort, but she didn't let go. "Good thinking!" Daniel shouted over the wind. "You saved it just in time." Clara felt a small rush of pride, but there was no time to dwell on it. The storm was intensifying, and more work remained. They moved quickly across the property, checking fences, gates, and animal shelters. Every step was a challenge. The ground was muddy, the rain soaked through her jacket, and the wind threatened to knock her off balance. But Clara refused to give up. She reminded herself that the animals depended on them, that the safety of the ranch rested in part on her efforts. By midday, the storm had reached its peak. Rain fell in sheets, turning the dirt paths into rivers, and the wind howled through the trees like a wild animal. Clara was exhausted, her clothes clinging to her, her hair plastered to her face, but she kept moving, driven by determination and a growing sense of resilience. Daniel was beside her the entire time, offering instructions and encouragement, his calm presence grounding her amid the chaos. At one point, a loud crack of thunder startled the younger horses. They began to panic, pulling at their restraints and kicking against the stalls. Clara froze for a moment, fear gripping her chest, but she quickly took a deep breath, remembering the lessons Daniel had taught her about patience and calmness. She approached the horses slowly, speaking in a gentle voice, and reached out to touch them, reassuring them with steady hands. Slowly they calmed down, trusting her presence. Daniel watched her carefully, his eyes reflecting a quiet approval. "You handled that very well," he said. "You stayed calm and focused. That's exactly what they needed." Clara nodded, feeling a mix of relief and pride. The storm was relentless, but she was learning that challenges, no matter how intimidating, could be overcome with patience, courage, and careful thinking. She felt stronger than she had ever felt before. As the afternoon wore on, the storm began to show signs of weakening, but it had left its mark. Trees were down, fences were damaged, and several areas of the ranch were flooded. Clara and Daniel worked together to assess the damage and plan the necessary repairs. Clara's arms ached, Her body was soaked and cold, but she felt a sense of satisfaction and accomplishment. She had faced one of the most difficult days of her life and had come through with resilience and determination. After securing the animals and making temporary repairs to the damaged fences, they finally paused. Clara sank onto the steps of the barn, shivering from the cold but filled with a deep sense of pride. Daniel handed her a warm cup of tea. She accepted it gratefully, feeling the warmth spread through her hands and chest.
"You did really well today," Daniel said, his voice calm but sincere.
The storm could have caused serious problems, but your quick thinking and courage made a difference. I'm proud of you. Clara felt a lump in her throat. She had worked hard, yes, but to hear such genuine praise from Daniel made her feel valued in a way she hadn't before. Thank you, she said softly. I couldn't have done it without your guidance. Daniel smiled faintly, the first relaxed expression she had seen all day. You've proven yourself today, not just in work, but in character. You handled pressure, fear, and uncertainty with grace. That's something rare. The storm gradually passed, leaving a wet but calm landscape behind. Clara stood with Daniel for a moment, looking out at the ranch. The fields glistened with rainwater. The trees swayed gently in the aftermath of the wind, and the animals were safe and settled. She felt a profound sense of connection to the land, to the life she was building here, and to the people who had guided her along the way. That night, after changing into dry clothes and sitting by the fire in her cabin, Clara reflected on the day. She had faced her biggest challenge yet, and it had tested her in ways she never expected. She realized that life on the ranch was not just about work. It was about resilience, problem-solving, patience, and the courage to act when circumstances demanded it. She had grown stronger, not just physically, but emotionally and mentally. She thought about Daniel, who had guided her, encouraged her, and trusted her to handle responsibility. She felt gratitude and admiration, a respect that had deepened with each challenge she faced. She knew that she had much more to learn, but she also knew that she was capable, that she could rise to meet difficulties, and that she could contribute meaningfully to this life she was building. As she lay in bed, listening to the gentle sounds of the ranch settling for the night, the distant lowing of cows, the rustle of leaves, the quiet drip of water from the roof, Clara felt a sense of peace. The storm had tested her, challenged her, and ultimately strengthened her. She had faced fear, uncertainty, and physical exhaustion, and she had emerged resilient. Clara knew that the coming days would bring new challenges, new lessons, and perhaps more storms, both literal and metaphorical. But she felt ready. She had discovered a strength within herself, a patience and courage she hadn't fully realized before. And she knew that with perseverance, guidance, and determination, she could face whatever came next. She closed her eyes, feeling the warmth of the fire and the safety of her small cabin. Tomorrow would bring new work, new lessons, and new moments to grow. But tonight, she allowed herself to rest, proud of her accomplishments, grateful for the support she had received, and ready to continue her journey with courage and resilience. The morning air was crisp and calm, a stark contrast to the stormy chaos of the previous day. Clara stepped outside her cabin, stretching her arms and taking a deep breath. The ranch was quiet, peaceful, and glistening from the rain that had fallen overnight. Puddles reflected the early sunlight, and the scent of wet earth and fresh grass filled her lungs. Clara smiled to herself, feeling a sense of calm she hadn't known before. Life on the ranch was challenging, yes, but it was also beautiful and rewarding in ways she had never imagined. She walked toward the barn, boots squelching softly in the mud. Daniel was already there, checking the animals and making notes in a small notebook. His calm presence, steady hands, and thoughtful attention to detail always made the ranch feel secure. When he saw Clara, he nodded and gave her a small smile. "Good morning, Clara," he said. "Ready to finish up the week?" Clara nodded, feeling both excitement and determination. The past few days had tested her in ways she hadn't expected. She had faced storms, learned complicated tasks, and taken on responsibilities that once would have seemed impossible. But now, she felt ready. She had grown stronger, more confident, and more capable. Today, she wanted to apply everything she had learned. They began the day with their usual morning chores, feeding the animals and checking fences. Clara moved with confidence, recalling the lessons from previous days. She knew what to look for, how to anticipate problems, and how to act quickly when needed. The morning passed smoothly, and she felt a sense of pride as she watched the animals respond calmly to her presence. She had learned patience, empathy, and consistency, and it showed. After the chores, Daniel led her to the fields, where several tasks needed to be completed. There were sections of fencing that still required attention, irrigation channels to check, and smaller repairs to be made to animal shelters. Clara took the lead, deciding which tasks to prioritize and how to organize her time. Daniel observed quietly, offering guidance only when necessary, trusting her judgment. As she worked, Clara thought about how far she had come. Just a few weeks ago, she had been nervous, unsure of herself, and unfamiliar with the ranch's demands. Now she moved with confidence, solving problems as they arose, and making decisions that affected the safety and well-being of the animals. She realized that the challenges she had faced, especially the storm, had not only taught her practical skills, but had also strengthened her resolve and self-confidence. By midday, the work was progressing well, but Clara noticed a small issue near the far side of the property. One of the irrigation channels had partially collapsed, and water was beginning to overflow, threatening to flood part of the field. She paused for a moment, considering how to handle it. This was a smaller challenge than the storm, but it still required quick thinking and careful action. Clara called Daniel over, and together they examined the problem. "We need to redirect the water before it causes more damage," Daniel said. "I want you to take the lead on this. You know what to do." Clara felt a surge of determination. She grabbed her tools and set to work, reinforcing the channel and redirecting the flow of water. The task required patience and careful attention, but Clara handled it with skill. She adjusted the barriers, checked the flow, and made sure the water was reaching the crops without damaging the land. When she was finished, she stepped back, breathing deeply, and smiled. Daniel nodded approvingly. "Well done, Clara. You handled that perfectly," he said. Clara felt a warm sense of accomplishment. Each day on the ranch had taught her lessons in responsibility, resilience, and problem-solving. Now, she realized, she was capable of managing challenges independently, making decisions that mattered, and contributing meaningfully to the ranch's operation. She had grown not only as a worker, but as a person. The afternoon passed in a calm rhythm. Clara and Daniel moved through the ranch together, finishing smaller tasks, checking animals, and ensuring everything was in order. Clara felt a sense of satisfaction with each completed task, a quiet joy that came from seeing the results of her hard work. She noticed small improvements in her own abilities, from lifting heavier loads with ease to solving problems without hesitation. She realized that she was stronger, more confident, and more capable than she had ever imagined. As the sun began to lower in the sky, Clara and Daniel paused to admire the ranch. The fields were tidy, the animals safe, and the fences secure. The light of the late afternoon sun painted the landscape in warm golds and soft shadows. Clara felt a deep sense of contentment, a feeling that her efforts had contributed to something meaningful. She understood now that life on the ranch was not just about work. It was about growth, responsibility, and finding joy in the everyday moments. Daniel spoke quietly, breaking the silence. "You've done very well, Clara. The progress you've made is remarkable. You've faced challenges, learned quickly, and handled responsibility with maturity. I'm proud of you." Clara felt a lump in her throat, touched by his words.
Thank you, Daniel.
"I couldn't have done it without your guidance," she said sincerely. He smiled, his expression softening. "You've proven that you're capable. You've learned more than just ranch work. You've learned about patience, resilience, and how to handle life's unexpected moments. That's more important than anything else." Clara nodded, feeling a warm sense of gratitude. She realized that the true lesson of the past weeks was not just about work, it was about personal growth. She had discovered strength she didn't know she had, learned to trust herself, and found fulfillment in the responsibilities she had taken on. She felt proud not just of what she had accomplished, but of who she had become. As evening approached, Clara finished the last tasks of the day. She fed the animals, checked the fences one final time, and ensured that everything was secure for the night. The ranch was calm, the animals settled, and the land at peace after the day's work. Clara took a moment to stand on the porch, looking out at the rolling fields bathed in golden light. She felt a sense of belonging she had never known before, a connection to the land, the work, and the life she was building here. Daniel joined her on the porch, handing her a warm cup of tea. They sat together, enjoying the quiet of the evening. Clara felt a sense of gratitude and reflection, thinking about the journey she had taken. She had arrived at the ranch uncertain and nervous, but she had faced challenges, grown stronger, and found a sense of purpose. The experiences of the past weeks, the lessons, the storms, the small victories, had shaped her in ways she could never have imagined. "You've done very well," Daniel said so. Not just as a worker, but as someone who can face challenges, adapt, and grow. "You've earned your place here." Clara smiled, feeling a warmth in her chest. "Thank you," she said. "I've learned so much, and I feel like I finally understand what it means to be part of something meaningful." Daniel nodded. "You're ready for whatever comes next, and I'm confident you'll handle it with the same determination and courage you've shown every day." As the stars began to twinkle in the clear night sky, Clara reflected on her journey. She had faced storms, solved problems, and taken on responsibilities she had once thought impossible. She had learned patience, resilience, and the importance of trusting herself. Most importantly, she had discovered a sense of purpose and belonging that made all the hard work worthwhile. Clara realized that life on the ranch was not always easy. There would be storms, challenges, and unexpected obstacles, but she knew now that she was capable of handling them, that she had grown stronger, wiser, and more confident. She felt a quiet joy in knowing that she had not only survived but thrived, learning lessons that would guide her for the rest of her life. As she prepared for bed that night, Clara felt a deep sense of peace. She had faced her fears, risen to challenges, and discovered her own strength. She knew that the future would bring more work, more challenges, and more opportunities for growth. But she was ready. She had found her place on the ranch, and she had found herself in the process. With a final glance at the moonlit fields outside her window, Clara lay down and closed her eyes. She felt proud of the life she was building, grateful for the lessons she had learned, and excited for the days to come. The ranch had tested her, guided her, and helped her grow, and in return, she had given it her effort, determination, and heart. And in that balance, Clara had found fulfillment, resilience, and a sense of belonging she would carry with her forever.